On May 5th, 2009, Chris Coleman left his family home in the early morning hours to go to the gym. He texted his wife repeatedly, but she didn't answer. She didn't answer because she was dead. Hi, I'm Denise with Fascinating Cases, and today we'll be talking about Chris Coleman and the murder of his entire family. I only recently heard about this case while I was researching information on Chris Watts and his case. It's a video I just recently dropped that you can check out. But let's get into Chris Coleman. He was born into a religious family in 1977. And the family was so religious that they believed they talked in tongues. And in some religions, it's believed to be a divine language that comes from the Holy Spirit. It's utterings that no one can really understand. Chris was reserved and thoughtful, and he joined the Marines after high school. When Chris was studying at the Canine Training Center in San Antonio, 22-year-old Chris met 21-year-old Sherry. She was a military police officer in the Air Force. Just 3 months after meeting, Chris brought Sherry home to meet his family, and they weren't crazy about her at all. The parents were very religious. They were pastors, actually, and they didn't like Sherry's short shorts or the tattoo on her leg. But Chris didn't care. One day after, the couple eloped in Chicago. Chris would later say, according to his parents, that their son immediately regretted his hasty wedding. But Sherry was pregnant, and soon they welcomed Garrett in 1998 and Gavin in 2000. The family settled in Columbia, Illinois, close to Chris's parents' house, and things seemed good at first. Chris landed a high-paying job as a personal bodyguard for Joyce Meyer. She was a popular televangelist, and he traveled with Joyce all over the world as part of her ministries. But the traveling took its toll on Chris and Sherry's marriage. Chris was rarely home, and when he was, Sherry complained that there was no intimacy. He even gave Sherry small verbal hints that he didn't even love her. The couple argued over money. Chris would say he worked hard while Sherry stayed home and shopped. In 2008, Sherry expressed to friends that she really loved Chris and she wanted it to work out. Chris, on the other hand, was telling friends that he wanted to divorce Sherry. Sherry believed Chris was having an affair as well with an old high school friend of hers that she even introduced to him. That woman's name was Tara Lentz. Chris was changing too at this time. He started swearing, something he didn't usually do, and he was drinking more. It seemed like he was rebelling. Then things got ominous. Chris started receiving threatening emails. Supposedly, they were coming from someone who hated Chris's boss, Joyce Meyer. Letters came in the mail as well. The messages threatened murder. Things like, tell Joyce to stop preaching her crap or someone close to her will die. They even threatened that they were going to start killing family members of her employees. And Chris took this seriously, and he took the matter to the police. An officer that actually lived across the street from Chris set up a surveillance camera pointing toward Chris's house to see who's coming and going and to see if anyone was leaving letters in the mailbox. The messages continued for 5 months when on April 27th, the last one came saying, "It's your final warning." It's now May 5th, 2009, and that surveillance camera catches Chris leaving his house at 5:43 a.m. to go to the gym. Immediately, he is repeatedly texting and calling his wife, asking if she was up, were the kids up, and this is something he didn't normally do. Chris then called the detective neighbor, the one with the surveillance camera, Justin Barlow, and could he please check on Chris's family? Chris said he would be home in 5 minutes really soon, but he actually took the long way home, driving past his exit. Why would he do that? Police checked out Chris's house to find the basement window wide open. They entered the home and found red spray paint all over the walls with ominous messages like, "You have paid," "You've been punished," and "I'm always watching." Authorities find Garrett, Gavin, and their mother Sherry dead in their beds. Chris was told about his family, and he was unresponsive. There were no tears. There were no questions. They thought maybe he was going into shock, so they put him in an ambulance. The chaplain in the ambulance noticed scratches on Chris's arm, and Chris said, "How did that get there?" And then he started to bang his arm against the railing on the gurney he was on, and he said that's how the scratches got there. Chris was taken in for questioning, and he tried to cover his scratched arm with a blanket. Police looked at surveillance and noticed the only one coming and going from Chris's house was Chris.
Listen, man, She wasn't alive when you left.
She was alive. She was laying right beside me.
We can go back and forth with this all day long, but the physical evidence doesn't lie. She was not alive when you left this morning. The children weren't alive when we left this morning.
Yes, they were.
No, come on, Chris. We got to get over this.
And Chris was cheating on Sherry, and they knew it. Detectives asked him, and he denied it. Meanwhile, his mistress, Tara Lentz, is interviewed by police.
How long have you been in a relationship with Chris?
Since late November, early December.
Where all of you guys been together?
Phoenix and Hawaii, Maui.
What would he tell his wife when he was gone?
He would have just told that he was working.
She admitted to the affair, even going as far to say that Chris and her planned to marry in a year, and that Chris was going to serve Sherry divorce papers. The autopsy report on Sherry and the kids put their time of death at around 3 a.m., and they were strangled. Investigators questioned Chris for over 6 hours at the police station.
Now's the time to tell us. Now's the time to get this out of me.
I don't know what else to tell you.
Yes, you do. Yes,
No.
you do. You have to tell me the truth, Chris.
I am telling you the truth.
Were you involved in her death?
No.
Okay.
After the funeral of his family, Chris was seen throwing away flowers and tributes to his family that were in the front yard, and he is even moving boxes of Sherry's things out of the house. Evidence against Chris was mounting. An affair with Tara Lentz, with sexy texts and pictures. They planned a trip together. Sherry texted a friend that Chris beat her and wanted to leave her. Sherry took the matter to Chris's boss, Joyce Meyer, who insisted the couple go to therapy. Sherry texted a friend saying, Chris said, I ruined his life and he can't get away from me. Chris believed if he divorced Sherry, he'd lose his high-paying job, something Joyce Meyer even confirmed later. 3 days before the murder, the couple had their marriage blessed on the altar of their church. The night before the murder, Chris's son Garrett was supposed to have a birthday sleepover at a friend's house. His father said it's not a good night, and the answer is no. The morning of May 5th, Chris left home and texted Sherry a lot and called her, and this was not his pattern. He was creating an alibi. He called police and took a longer route to get home. But why did he do that? Police discovered a receipt that Chris had bought red apple spray paint before the murders. Remember the menacing messages on the walls? Chris said the killer found that spray paint can in his house. Chris also wasn't the brightest bulb. The threatening texts and emails and letters had the same misspellings that Chris had always made, like opportunities. Besides, the emails came from Chris's own laptop. He's arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. The trial starts in April of 2011 in Waterloo, Illinois, with jurors brought in from a different county. Chris says an intruder killed his family. There was absolutely no evidence to prove that. It took the jury 15 hours over 2 days to come back with a guilty verdict. The judge sentenced Chris to life in prison with no parole. Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin were laid to rest ultimately in their parents' hometown outside of Chicago. Chris's parents blame Sherry for his troubles, and they say he's innocent. Chris is in the Dodge Correctional Facility in Waupun, Wisconsin, a big prison, and he has interesting company. Chris Watts is there too, and Chris Watts pled guilty to killing his wife Shanann and daughters Bella and Cece. People tend to compare these 2 cases. Both killed their wives and kids. The victims were strangled. Both had mistresses that they were so obsessed with, they were driven to get rid of their families. Both of the extended families of Chris Coleman and Chris Watts disliked their wives. Both were found responsible for the killings quickly, but neither man seemed like a killer. The question is, why did Chris Watts and his case get so much more attention? And the only thing I can come up with is the method of disposal. Chris Watts put his 2 little girls, 5 and 3, in separate oil tanks on a work site, scratching their little bodies as he pushed them through an 8-inch hole. My thoughts on this case? Well, at least Chris Watts admitted his guilt. Chris Coleman still says he's innocent. Chris Coleman believes his family was in the way of the life he wanted. He might have felt suppressed when he grew up, thinking that it was his religion and suppressed his life. And maybe his life with Sherry was suppressing him as well. He didn't want to lose his job, and he wanted his mistress, Tara Lentz, above all else. Well, now he gets nothing. He can sit in jail. I wonder if he and Chris Watts talk and compare notes. Chris Coleman didn't even want to be bothered with one of his children. He could have let Garrett sleep over at his friend's house, but he wanted him home so he could do away with him as well. What do you think about this case? Why did Chris Watts get so much more attention? Let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you. Meanwhile, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll be talking to you again soon. Thank you.